Greetings Internet, DDA here, and welcome to a long-awaited return to the Star Wars Unlimited card game and me making videos. I'm finally feeling a little bit better. I'm able to sit now. I'm still walking around with crutches, but I am walking, at least I'm going through the motions, so we're improving, and here come the videos. I've been working on a new pet deck. Of course, I'm pretty competitive. I plan on going to a few more PQs and repping my Mace Windu deck, continuing the season. However, in downtime, I have to, spread my creative wings in this game. This game is really fun, and there are just so many fun, cool combos that you can do in this card game. And being that we are in Data Vault Summer, it is time for Count Dooku to get in his swimsuit and join in the summer festivities. Join the Data Vault Summer with this Data Vault Count Dooku deck. So getting into the list right here, you can see this list was inspired by the newly released Vulture Droid that you can play up to 15 copies in your deck and get +1 damage for each other Vulture Droid in play. So it's worthy to note that the Vulture Droid is both a Separatist and a Droid. So you can play the Vulture Droid for 0 with Count Dooku's ability. So we have a lot of Vulture Droids that we play in the deck, but to be honest with you, only 10. And I say only 10 because you can play up to 15. And in a Data Vault deck, you would expect, okay, well, you can play up to 15 of these. Why aren't you playing the maximum number in a Data Vault deck? And I can tell you that I started with 12. Okay, and I played a lot of games with 12 Vulture Droids. I found that they were clogging my draws a little bit too much, and I always base things on how often I resource it, and I found like 90% of my Vulture Droids were getting resourced. So I went down to 10. It feels a lot better at 10, I think, so that's where we are for now. But of course, being that this is a Separatist Vulture Droid combo deck, this deck is really complicated to play, if I'm being honest with you. You're not going to be able to pick up this deck and just start winning with it. I lost very many games until I understood what the deck was trying to do and how to do that. So I'm going to dedicate an entire section in this video going over the common openers. So that section is going to be after the main critique of the deck, which I'm going to go over every card as I do classically. So we already talked about the Vulture Droid. They can be played for 0. They get buffed when you play multiple copies of them. I think it would be unjust for me to talk about the Vulture Droid without talking about the main combo of the deck. And so the main combo of the deck is, of course, Invisible Hand, which allows you to search whenever you play the Invisible Hand. This is, of course, the new Invisible Hand to be released in Set 4. And so whenever you play the Invisible Hand, and whenever the Invisible Hand completes an attack, which means it has to survive, very noteworthy there, that it has to survive the attack, complete the attack, you search the top 8 cards of your deck for a droid unit, reveal it, and draw it. And then if it costs 2 or less, you can play it for free. So the Vulture Droid is a droid that can be played, that is 2 or less. It is the only droid in the deck that can be played for free off of his Invisible Hand. So you're going to be doing it a lot, and I do it a lot. It's very easy to spam Vulture Droids in space with the 10 copies, because if you think about it, you have what? It's close to 20% of your deck is Vulture Droids. It's probably around 18 or 17% off the top of my head is Vulture Droids. So chances are you're going to get a Vulture Droid as an option in the top 8. Of course, this is Data Vault, so sometimes it happens. The deck sometimes you'll whiff. The deck plays 21 droids, I think. 21. So you should hit every time. That's a third of your deck. You're seeing 8 cards. In theory, 2.333 should be the number of droids you see in every top 8. But again, this is Data Vault, so there's variance. So that's worthy to note there. So of course the combo with this deck is you're going to play Invisible Hand for 4. That's what you do most often. You exploit him from hand, play him for 4. So you're kind of leading up to that play. Your early turns are kind of playing supporting cards. for you to kind of lead up to this play. It's the big play of the deck, and it's one of the reasons why, you know, if you look at the unit ratios of the deck, there are more ground units than there are space units, but the deck feels like a space deck because of the Invisible Hand and its ability to tutor Vulture droids for free. So I've played a lot of people, and they always tell me, you know, that this deck goes harder in space or really hard in space, and it is very true, but it has to play a lot of ground units too, as we'll get into that. But this is the main power spike of the deck is, of course, on turn 3, you're going to play the Invisible Hand and start tutoring Vulture droids. It's very powerful. You know, I played a lot of different colors of Dooku. I played the blue and I played the yellow. I saw recently that yellow Dooku has been having some success. Not sure exactly what tournaments. If you happen to know, please comment in the comment section below. What I know they've at least gotten like top 4 or something. They may have won a showdown or something. But I saw some yellow Dooku have some success. But of course, that deck's not a Vulture droid deck. The purpose of the Data Vault was, of course, you know, we have the Vulture droids, and we need to play a large number of them. But we also need to ensure that we're playing enough late game that when we get into the late game, we're not just drawing Vulture droids. And that's where Data Vault comes in. Data Vault, very interesting the way that you can kind of play around with the different stages of the game with those extra 10 cards in terms of ratios in your deck. It makes deck building a lot more interesting than I originally considered with the Data Vault. But moving on here so like I said, we have the 10 Vulture droids, but we don't just have Vulture droids. In fact, most of the time, you're not going to want to do Vulture droid as your turn 1 play. Most of the time, you're looking for one of these guys. And I've had people ask me, you know, DDA, what do you get when you play double green? What is the advantage of playing double green? The advantage of playing double green is Maz Ameda, for sure. It gives you kind of another Poggle. That's better situationally because, like, for example, Maz Ameda can tutor Super Laser Tech to your hand and help you ramp, give you an amazing turn 2 play. Or turn 3 play, rather, because you need to tutor it. So it can give you, because Super Laser Tech is one of the greatest cards in this deck because it gives you resources in 2 different ways. It gives you an exploit target, and then it gives you an additional resource after that. So there's a lot of crazy things you can do with Super Laser Tech. So yeah, Maz Ameda can tutor Super Laser Tech. Of course, it can tutor the Invisible Hand. It's good to exploit Maz Ameda as well. At certain stages, like after you've tutored maybe 2 or 3 times, or if you know they're going to kill him, just, hey, exploit him. Poggle just is an engine for you, a crazy engine. So, like I said, which one of these is better is very situational. It really depends in the matchup. If I'm looking for that Super Laser Tech, then I really like the Maz Ameda. So moving on, the last kind of turn 1 play that we play, well, the final 2 are 2 combo pieces. We played 2 different kinds of combo pieces. I felt like I needed a little bit more kind of droid generation in this deck, so I wanted to add the 2 Confederate Couriers. You could do the droid deployments in here. I found I didn't need it / I wanted to make sure that I was hitting my Maz and my Poggle triggers. So I didn't like the deployment so much because I wanted to play a unit. So that was the decision to kind of add the Confederate Courier over the droid deployment. And then we have 3 copies of Mahdi, which are just crazy. In this deck, it lets you do crazy burst damage. Of course, with the Invisible Hand. That's the number 1 target. There are several other targets in this deck, including Count Dooku, which I've done. But the main target is, of course, the Invisible Hand. You can do a risky play and play Mahdi and hope he survives until you drop Invisible Hand turn 3. I've done that, but man, is that risky. But it can work out for you if you pull it off. So moving into the 3 drops, for the 3 drops you're going to see most of them are combo pieces. The deck goes kind of heavy early game to meet the aggro decks, and then it just is all combo in the mid game. because, like, I'm not trying to establish, like, strong stats on the board or things like that. I just really want to get my exploit combos off as fast as possible. And you'll see that when we go over the 3-drops. So the first 2 3-drops I want to talk about are the Battle Droid Escorts and the Manufactured Soldiers. These cards kind of go hand in hand. They do very similar things. They both kind of generate 3 droids for you. Manufactured Soldiers just giving you the 3 droids, and then Droid Escort giving you 2, and then an additional 1 when it dies. So, of course, Droid Escort, a unit. That will trigger Poggle and Mazmeda, as I discussed previously. Manufactured Soldiers, really strong. The 3 droids, getting a burst of 3 droids, helps in very many ways in this deck. And if you saw the list and you saw that there are 3 Gores in the list, and you're wondering how in the world you play this card, well, you're looking at the 2 cards right now that let us play this card. In fact, in the beginning, when I was first playing this deck, I only had 2 Gores, and I added a 3rd because I found myself looking for it. And in fact, in the last local that we played, I ended 2-1 with this deck. I think this deck is just humming right now. I ended 2-1, and I played Gore 3 times in the tournament. Like, it's only 3 rounds, right? So I'm averaging in about 50% of my games almost. I'm playing Gore. Crazy. Gore comes out in this deck, and you're looking at the reason why Gore comes out. Manufactured Soldiers is such a great card, and another reason why the double green works so well with all these combos. And then, of course, I talked previously, we have the Super Laser Techs. They're so good. They're so good to expedite your deploy. But keep in mind that the When Defeated ability is going to go after you play the exploited card. So you cannot use the readied resource in the cost for whatever you're exploiting. So just keep that in mind. You'll get the resource after, which makes it worse for sure. But the main reason why we play it is so we can get to our late game as fast as possible and get to our deploy as fast as possible. And of course, like, there is no deck that uses Super Laser Tech better than Dooku. I really don't think so. Like, you can argue, like, oh, like, Palp draws a card. He has to pay a resource for that. So what? He's paying 4 for +1 for resupply draw, which is good. And paying. It's good. But how about paying 1 for a ready? Like, actually, it's 0. It's literally net 0 if you think about it. Because you're getting 2 from the exploit and then a readied resource. So how about just free ramp? Free. Free. So closing out the 3-drops, we have 3 Droid Commandos. Great against aggro. That's the main reason. You need them for the aggro match. They help you push into, but they're needed for the aggro match. I don't think I have to say anything past that. And then the only 4-drop that we play in the deck, of course it's the only 4-drop we play in the deck, is 3 Command. 3 Command, such a great card. Most of the time you're either doing... You can unit kill very often with this deck, and I have. Sometimes I'll drop Invisible Hand turn 3. I won't be able to find the OB, so I can't OB on 5, because of course Invisible Hand and OB on 5 is ridiculous. 8 damage. But sometimes you can't find the OB. You can command, you can deal damage and ramp, which is really nice because then you deploy Dooku the next turn. So an option there. Just think about that. I know it can only kill a non-unique unit, but they are still hanging around. And people, they always jaw drop when I kill their unit as they look to say, wait a minute, is the star there? No, it's non-unique. I checked. Now, moving on to the mid-game. The mid-game is kind of misleading in this deck because there are, like, your exploits, so you can play most of your mid-game as early game if you want to. So just keep that in mind. You can always, like, for example, the 5-drops that we're about to go over. All of these 5-drops can be played on turn 2 with an exploit for 3, right? So they are our Sentinels, our Ground Sentinels. We play a lot of Ground Sentinels, and this is simply from testing. I found that, you know, this deck has a lack of Space Sentinels, right? And you might note that. I found that with the Invisible Hand combos, and just Invisible Hand in general, being just a ridiculous unit that you can drop so early in the game, you kind of own the space pretty easily. You can at least break even, usually in space, and I've had this happen often with pilot decks. Like, I played, like, you know, some different pilot decks, and I'll meet them in the space and we'll kind of break even, and then they'll end up deploying their pilot leader to the ground, and I will have to deal with their grounded piloted leader, and they'll go ground. So I needed these ground sentinels, actually. They're very key to the strategy of the deck. So I actually ended up adding more and more ground sentinels into the deck until I felt comfortable with the deck and where it was, and this is the 5 that I landed on. So again, this is just from testing, noting that I'm able to control the space with Invisible Hand, but I need those ground sentinels to own the ground. And then, of course, we wouldn't be a green villain deck without 3 OBs. I don't think I need to really describe how this card in this deck. It's just crazy good when you exploit out a big thing and then you OB, right? So, like, you can exploit, again, Invisible Hand on 4, then 8 damage with OB on 5. I do it all the time. Incredibly powerful. Definitely worthy to note. And then one of the greatest cards to actually come out for exploit decks, in my opinion, is right here. This card, so crazy good. It really does 3 things for you, this card. 3 things. It stops space assaults because it gives you all those sentinels. It pushes base damage because you're getting actually a crazy amount of power on the board with this card. Like, if you're doing it on 6, that's 6 power. Like, a 5/6/6 is solid. It's a 5/6/6 is solid. You got the sentinels, and then additionally, you're getting a bunch of units to exploit if you want. If you want to exploit them, you can. This card's just spectacular in the deck, and I said there's a lack of space sentinels. There are, but this card alone is usually enough to end the space game for you. Like, they'll be dodging your invisible hands, and then all of a sudden you'll drop down 3 or 4 X-Wings with Sentinel, and they just won't be able to do anything. So, really strong card, definitely worthy at 3. Continuing with our mid-game cards, we have 2 copies of Kalani. A very strong card here. Kalani is just incredible stats, like 5/7. He's just a beast. He is a crazy beast. He will take shots for you, and then he will push in. He's kind of a backup, a fallback play for me, but he is a droid, so you can draw him to hand with the Invisible Hand, which I have done. The main reason why he's in here, he's a droid, so you can draw him with Invisible Hand, and he's a fallback play. If you can't find the Invisible Hand, you can Kalani on turn 3 instead. So it's like a way to ensure the turn 3 play, 6-drop, consistency in the Data Vault deck. Now going into our late game, we have 2 Turbo Laser Salvos. We only play 2 because, again, there's a lot of ground in this deck, and sometimes you don't have a space. Sometimes you don't have a target for Turbo Laser Salvo. However, sometimes you do. And when you do, and you have this in your hand, it's crazy. So, we played it too. I've won countless games with it. Hold it in your hand. Of course, you need the Invisible Hand or a buffed up droid. I have done it with a Vulture droid, the Turbo Laser Salvo. I've hit it for 5, and 5 damage will take out most things. So it's pretty easy to get a Vulture droid at 5. So yeah, just keep that in mind. Now moving into our final late game plays, the Invisible Hand, the other one, is still a strong card and a great game sealer. My limit with this card is I've hit it for 13. That's my limit so far. Definitely very, very strong when you're hitting those big numbers. When you hit more than 10 in a single shot, that's when you know you have a game sealer. You have to really consider the 1-2 punch with this, because usually you can hit twice with it before it dies. So just consider that. Its stats dodge most removal in the game, the 4/7. Worthy to note there as well. So just consider that. You can drop it on 6 on the 5th resource on the 5th turn. I do that sometimes, but it is slow, so just consider that. Really good in the control matchup, though. Speaking of cards that are good in the control matchup, we play a single copy of Battle Droid Legion. This is mainly for the control matchup. It's really good against control. You know, it's a way for you to kind of invest, dump all of your droid exploit into a big body that will then get them back when it dies. So it's super good because it has 6 power. It will bait, like, yeah, it can be takedowned. Most units can kill it. Like, it's really meant to die. So that's why it's at 1. I played it at 3. I dropped them down to add more of the ground sentinels. But I still have 2 of these in the sideboard because I think it's valuable in the control matchup. When you can just kind of throw it down and threaten damage on the base, they have to remove it, and then you get droids. And then you can either throw out another invisible hand, throw out the big invisible hand, or you can, throw out a gore even. So just consider that. Really good in the control matchup, but that's why we only play 1 of it. And then, of course, we play 3 gores to end the Dooku onslaught. So now, gore, I said it in the beginning, I added 2 of them in because why not? Like, if there was a deck to use gore, this would be the deck. So I added 2 of it just to test it. It was so good that I added a 3rd. And I'm so surprised. I fully expected to cut him at one point. But nope, he's good. And really good. The ambush overwhelm, like, anyone who's played Maul enough knows how good the combo of ambush overwhelm is. You know, this deck is mid-range. You push in, especially with Invisible Hand Vulture droids. So if you have like some Invisible Hand Vulture droid shenanigans going on in the space, and then they're running you over in ground, you're getting them up there, that ambush overwhelm Sentinel can be the offset in damage you need to end the game very quickly, especially against the aggro decks. So Gore is actually really strong in the aggro matchup because, you know, they usually don't attack your units. They usually don't waste the time because they just want to go base. So you'll be able to Gore readily and then just take them all out. That is the overview of the deck. Now I'm going to go into some of the strategy. And the first thing I want to talk about is just kind of playing out some different opening hands and how you would play the hand out. Alright, so I would consider this hand pretty much the ideal opener. If you find a hand like this, you are so pretty. Because you would start with the Poggle. Right? You would start with the Poggle. Then next turn, you would play the Super Laser Tech. Tap the Poggle, get your droid. Then next turn, depending, which I have actually especially if you open Poggle, because let's say your opponent has a 2 HP unit because people are throwing Luke in the ground arena, they're playing other 3/2s, so if you can trade, I would actually do that with the Super Laser Tech instead of exploit him. Because you have 2 units, and it's hard for them to kill 2 units in a single action. Like, at a minimum, if they would kill the droid, you have Poggle to exploit if you needed. It really depends. It's a hard choice, to be honest with you. And I've run into it. Like, you need to make sure, you have to think, in this deck especially, because, you have to think, what's my follow-up play, right? So I have the ability to exploit. If I have my Invisible Hand in my hand, that's what you have to think about this deck, because there are a lot of things they can do. For example, they could IG 3000 and ping these 2, and if Poggle had some damage on them, they take all of them out. Now all of a sudden you don't have a play, so you have to really think about the sequencing and the responses that your opponent can have when you kind of commit to plays and things like that. This is one of the reasons that makes exploits so difficult to play. But this is the ideal opener, of course, because then you would exploit the Super Laser Tech, play the Invisible Hand, trigger Poggle, get another droid, get a droid with the Invisible Hand. Now on turn 3, you have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 units in play. You have 5 units, you have 5 resource, going into 6 resource next turn. It's a crazy, crazy accelerated start. I can't even like understate it. I think I've won every game I've done this play here, and being that it is a data vault deck, you're not going to always do it. So the next thing I want to talk about is specific Mahdi combos. As I mentioned with that ideal opener play, you would have 6 resource. What you need to consider with Mahdi is because he costs 2 and then exploiting is 2, you actually are even when you play exploit Mahdi. You pretty much always want to play him and then immediately exploit him. It's very rare that you're going to play him and then wait another turn to then exploit him. That's very rare that you will do that because you don't really want to risk it. You want to control when Mahdi goes off with the exploit. So just keep that in mind. So that's why I note that you break even, because you have to consider, okay, if I want to exploit my invisible hand and untap, I need to have 6 resource because I'm going to play Mahdi, have 4, and then exploit invisible hand for 4. So the next thing I want to talk about is kind of the 0 cost plays that you have with Poggle. You could do this with other things, but I just kind of want to note like the 0 cost plays because it works well with Poggle. So like for example, let's say you open Poggle and then you use Super Laser Tech or any 3-drop. You could Droid Commando or anything really. You get the Droid and then you can exploit for 0. Now I mentioned before you can actually do that with Super Laser Tech as well. Like, so let's say you wanted to get the resource and ensure that you had that ready resource next turn to fully utilize. You could exploit for 0. The things that you can exploit for 0 are, of course, the Confederate Courier and the Vulture Droid. So against aggro decks, and I like to think of it like this, right? I say like you're banking your battle droid resources, right? So like in the case of the Confederate Courier, you're using a battle droid to then get something that you would want to exploit then later. It's kind of like you're taking away the dinky 1/1 that you just got for free, putting a 2/1 that when it dies, you're going to get another battle droid. So it's like a way for you to like bank it to use later. When you do it for 0, that's the way I like to think of it. So really good there. Against the aggro decks, I will play Vulture Droids for 0 often. To try to flood the board as much as I can with Poggle, with things like the Super Laser Tech. If I can throw out a Vulture Droid for 0, I'll do it. Because if I do that like once or twice, and suddenly my Vulture Droids are 4/2s, especially if they're 25 HP, they will have to start. And I've had it happen. Like I've had Quinlan decks. They have to like use Daring Raid on Vulture Droids, and they have to spend their resource, like they can't Plo Koon and things like that. Like they have to slow down and make sure they're killing your Vulture Droids because otherwise they would lose. So the zero plays are definitely worthy to note there. And you have to really think about the speed of your opponent's deck, because if they're an aggro deck, you can kind of afford to go more aggressive and burn more cards from your hand. But if they're a control deck, you really need to hold back and think about flooding more so than, making one big play. The best thing to do against control, obviously, is ramp. So that's why commands, Super Laser Techs, they're great. Ramp as fast as you can, so that way you can just play the big stuff and you don't need to expend a lot of resources to do so. The only other play thing I want to mention that I haven't already mentioned is how good the escort is, because you can play it for 1. So I'll do that often, like say with a droid commando. Droid commandos can also be played for 1. So the ability to play both of these for 1 is very, very strong. Because sometimes, for example, in the case of the Super Laser Tech, you get that 1 extra resource all of a sudden, and you didn't really account for it. Well, now you have this 1 resource that's just kind of sitting there. You wish you could do something with it. Well, here you go. You can Dooku and play one of these guys for 1. And especially in the case of the Battle Droid Escort, again, you're kind of banking those droids. Take that droid, get another droid, refill it, and then get another droid. And prepare for that gore drop. Or if you're playing against an aggro deck, you can throw down the commando and ambush something. So I love this deck. I love Count Dooku. I've been playing it for a long time. Like I said, I played pretty much all the colors. I'm not going to say this is the best one because the blue exploit cards are actually really strong. However, and the yellow, I know the yellows are pretty good too. However, this is definitely the most fun I've had with Dooku. We're in the Data Vault Summer. We're getting some sun, and we're enjoying our plus 10 cards. So if you like this video, please, and if you like innovative and fun and new deck profiles, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and thank you for joining us. Random Number Gaming, we're going to be coming out with a Patreon soon to get some personal, time with me to talk about building decks, and I love talking to people about building decks from all walks of life. You may call it Tier 2. I call it Opportunity. So stick around for that, and we will be coming out with so much more free content, so much more content for our most supportive members of the community. And thank you all for joining us as we take Star Wars Unlimited into the stars.